Where there's thunder, there's lightning. John Nada. One of the things that I've heard said is that in the pursuit of a girlfriend or significant other, men will tend to neglect male friendship and, in fact, not even see the importance of male friendship and chase after a woman to the exclusion of all those things. Now, there's a variety of different reasons why this is and a variety of different outcomes as a result of this. But having said that, I noticed while attending Bible college that this was definitely something in the forefront of a lot of the things that went on there. And that is that most of my friends, including myself at that time, the single biggest driving factor in life was that of finding a girlfriend and, of course, eventually getting married to that girlfriend. And you have to, of course, take into account also that you go into college, you're 18 years old. Around that age, Bible college or not, you're going to be looking at finding somebody to date, finding somebody to be with. And so I don't think it's necessarily unique to that particular community. But certainly there was the emphasis to you've got to find somebody and you've got to find them quick. And when you find them, you got to marry them. And so within the first year and a half, there was already a significant portion of my friends that were married. And of course, a lot of them, by the time they graduated, already, had children on the way or, shortly after graduation had children. But before all that, there would be all these instances referred to as hanging out with the boys. Fishing trips, maybe restoring an old car, hanging out with one another, having a good old time, enjoying each other's fellowship. But there was always this underlying thing of, it seemed anyway, and I think I've used this analogy before, but it's kind of like you're in the claw machine and you're hanging out with all the other little toys in the claw machine and y'all are sitting around. A lot of your camaraderie and everything has to do with, having a lot of the same struggles and issues and dealing with a lot of the same lot in life. And then one day the claw comes to life and it's moving over, hovering around. And all the toys are sitting there thinking, pick me, pick me, pick me. So it's almost like in the interim, yes, you were having fun, you were enjoying life, but everybody at some point wanted to be picked, so to speak, at some point in time. Like, it wasn't like people wanted that to go on forever. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's cool, whatever. But everybody wanted to eventually find the one. And a lot of what people did in Bible college, a lot of people, and again, I was one of these people that did this, or at least acted this way, but it's just like, if I could just be this good, godly person, then God will see my plight and he'll reward me. And of course that reward was going to be, a godly woman or, just a wife or girlfriend or whatever. And so everybody played these roles. It's no big surprise, shouldn't be a big surprise to anybody that people of any religion can be deceptive or can wear a mask just like anybody else. And so that was a part of the framework of that environment, that community. They called it the bubble. And it was. And so that was a lot of the driving force for a lot of young men there. And it's no surprise that, of course, as you can guess, a lot of that driving force had to do with the fact that you have these guys, that they're not even 20 years old yet. So they have a very real biological driving force. And so, as I was saying about it, it's like, okay, I'm content with hanging out with the boys and doing this, that, and the other. But deep down back of a lot of our minds at that time was, this is fun and everything, but, when is it going to be my chance? When is it going to be my turn? And so guys would get married, and they would get on campus housing, and then they would have dinners. Sometimes they would have like maybe Thanksgiving dinner or something, like if they were staying in the area and there were people that were not going to go home for that period of time, so then they would have them over. And so, I got invited to some of those gatherings, as did some of my other friends, and it was always kind of awkward because there's no way to not feel like the third wheel. And so, well, it was always better if it was you and maybe one other person. That way it wasn't, so blatant, I guess. But that being said, I mean, you looked up to those guys like, yeah, he did it, and you knew he was, doing his thing, so to speak. And so, yeah, you looked up to those guys. Those were the guys to emulate. Man, he's so lucky, and I wish I could be him, or I wish I could, find somebody like her, or whatever. And so you may be asking, well, what does this have to do with the original point? Which the original point was a lot of men, to the detriment of their male friendships, seek out and seem to only think that companionship with a woman is what matters. It's like, I mean, I can have 4 or 5 friends, that'd be fine, but really, I'd rather have a girlfriend, wife, or whatever than I would the 4 or 5 friends. The 4 or 5 friends are peripheral to the other thing. But here's the problem with all that. I don't think it's a valid point in a lot of ways. Because as I pointed out, I think in a previous video, especially the older you get, I mean, by the time I graduated from Bible college, just about every friend I had was married. And certainly 4 or 5 years down the line, they were married and had kids by then. And I think now at this point, there's maybe a handful. I don't even know if it's a handful. At least 2 or 3 guys that I know of that, honestly, most of them are living their best life. They're doing important things. They're seemingly happy, with things and going on about going their own way, should we say? So that's good. That's what we want. That's kind of the ultimate goal, right? And so, but the point being is that I think that the older you get, the more difficult it is to have any relationships whatsoever, whether it's, a girlfriend type relationship. But I don't think that you're necessarily guaranteed to have male friendships either, because the older you get, most of the guys that you meet are going to be married, are going to have kids. Most of them you meet are going to be people you work with, so they're either a coworker or they're, a superior, or they may work underneath you. Either way, it's really hard to have any kind of real meaningful friendships. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you kind of have to. I mean, there's a lot of things about work and being friends with people at work that could be an issue. And so, yeah, you can be friends with people, but you're not going to be able to talk to them about MGTOW or some of the other things that we discuss. Not that you necessarily would want to, but it kind of becomes a lot of who you are. You kind of internalize a lot of these ideas and teachings. And so, in a way, you almost have to deny aspects of who you are just to get along with people and to quote unquote fit in, for whatever that's worth. And so you've got the guys that are married with kids, married, or maybe they're divorced, or maybe they just ended up having a child. And these place people in different aspects of their life too. I mean, it's going to be a lot harder for a guy that's married with kids to relate to a guy that is not married and doesn't have kids, and all the other variations of the like. Maybe they're married, doesn't have a kid, but it's still going to be hard for them to relate to the single guy. and so on and so forth. And if you're single and you don't have, well, in some ways, if you're a single man, and I've seen this, as have many of you seen on dating apps and things like that, where if you do have children, or let's say you got one kid or two kids, as a man, that is always seen as a detriment from the woman's perspective. The woman can have 5 kids and none of them have the same father, and she'll still find somebody to pick up the tab. And we know why that is. It has to do with resource allocation and the like. Nothing really complicated there. Pretty easily figured out. That being said, on the flip side, if you're a single guy and you have no kids, not married, that's going to cut you out of a lot of social circles as well. And you may say, cool, fine, I don't want to be in those social circles. And most of us don't. But the problem is, I've noticed that a lot of times it affects your ability, your upward mobility at work and jobs, because it's like, well, this person is kind of he's not quite fitting like everybody else. And, you have a hard time relating to the boss, or you have a hard time relating to coworkers. And also, this being kind of a benefit from the MGTOW side of it, they don't have you over the barrel quite as much. And it's just like, well, he could leave at any moment. He doesn't have anything really tying him here. That's a good thing. But again, it's just kind of like you're kind of a leper, in a sense, to a lot of those people. Right, wrong, and different, it is what it is as far as that's concerned. And so the other aspect of things, when you're talking about male friendship, is the aspect of competition. Going back to Bible college, you got 5 or 6 guys hanging out, and there's maybe 3 or 4 girls hanging out with them, watching a movie, whatever. There's that competition. It's always there, where, guys put each other down and have to show out for the girls in front of them, and all this kind of thing. And it's that competition for, who's going to get the date with the girl, who's going to, be the girl's boyfriend, whatever. And so there's that aspect of it. And so the point I was making is, even if you want to invest in male friendship, even if it's important to you, even if you don't really care about getting married or having a relationship long term with a woman, even if you're just completely done with just everything to do with male-female interaction, it's not as if you can just replace all that and focus on your male friends, because the older you get, the less of those you're going to have. And I'm not saying it's impossible. I think for most of us, no matter where we're at, whatever stage in life, I don't think most people have this menagerie of friends that we like to think other people do. I think most people probably only have 1 or 2 friends that are, that they talk to on a regular basis. Here's what I compare it to. Here's how you know how many friends you really have and what kind of friends they are. And, I don't know, think of 10 people that you're friends with, or 5 people you're friends with. How many of those guys would come by the jailhouse and bail you out the next morning? That's who your friend is. And then, of course, the old saying goes, and a real good friend would be in the jailhouse with you. But you get my point. How many of those guys would show up if, you're out there on Route 66 and you got a flat tire? How many of those guys are making that drive, to help you out? How many people do you really have in your life that you can really rely on if something goes bad, maybe you get a bad bout of appendicitis. Can you call that guy up at 2:00 in the morning and get him to drive you to the hospital, or you see what I'm saying. And so that's the real question. It's just like, you may want to have the friendships, but how realistic is it that's going to be an option? Even just being with family, you go home for the holidays, spend time with family. Everybody's got, their wife and kid or whatever. Or maybe you're, divorced, and so you're there and kind of looking around the room, and every family's different, but I know that there would be some, I'm sure some of you guys, your family would be disappointed or think something was wrong with you. And again, MGTOW, if anything, is kind of about not really worrying about what others' thoughts and opinions are, but it's one of those things. It's like you're just kind of there in the background, and that can be enjoyable. Hey, you get to show up, eat some good food, and you don't really have any responsibilities. Take the good with the bad, right? But at the end of the day, it's kind of like what I've always said, and I've said it more than once. You're on your own. Hence, going your own way, right? In the name, in the title. And that can either be a good thing or a bad thing. And there's going to be times where I think we have to be honest with ourselves. I get questions all the time. How can I start a MGTOW YouTube channel? What makes a good MGTOW YouTube channel? I don't know what to say. What should I talk about? And the best advice I can give anybody, whether it's starting a MGTOW YouTube channel or anything you do in life, is to just be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself and be honest with those you interact with. At the end of the day, I think it's important to see things for how they are, because you cannot begin to determine what an issue may or may not be, and hence cannot begin to solve that issue until you're willing to sit down and look at the wiring, so to speak. And so that's a fact of what we're facing, what we're dealing with. But in the sense that, yes, we are on our own, we are going it alone, so to speak, there's a lot of us out here doing it. So whatever solace you take in that, knowing that there are other people out there that are having the same struggles and the same issues and a lot of the same problems. And I think for the most of us, MGTOW or not, that's just kind of what life is. You come in and you're alone, and you'll go out and be alone. And in the meantime, there'll be a lot of times where you are alone. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's in those times that you learn about who you are, and you learn about what life is and what things are all about. And you gain an appreciation for things that would pass on by and blow on by you, if not for those moments. As always, guys, go your own way or don't. The choice is yours.